then I'll come to you.
Jack Layton's been very consistent.
Where's the consistency?
This isn't, well, he's
Tell
not.
him to say something against HFC Nova Scotia.
So should we get into the inconsistencies between the federal Liberal Party and the
No, but you're
provincial
saying
Liberal
he's
Party in
consistent. I'm saying,
Ontario?
you're the one who's making an argument he's consistent.
Well, I think it's a very consistent argument.
I don't see it.
We're the party that's trying to deal with affordability issues.
All right. Wayne, what would you like to add to this?
Anybody's surprised by this.
By what?
By the gas prices going up.
Well, I don't think we're surprised. We just don't like it.
But we don't like a lot of things.
Sure we don't.
We are so spoiled, it's ridiculous. Canada signed on to Kyoto.
So the Colonel's going to have to suck it up. Is that what you're saying?
Here's the thing. Remember when we signed on to Kyoto? The reason that Europe and these other countries have been able to do something about these things is because they were responsible. They looked at the problem and they said, what do we have to do to fix it? And they started to do that. In this country, we arbitrarily, the Harper government turned its back on the government of Canada's signing of the Kyoto Accord. That made a liar out of every one of us. Every Canadian was on that, with that signature when we signed that thing. And the Harper government made a liar of every one of us. And this is what we have reaped by voting those clowns in.
All right. Let's talk a bit about your leaders, because when people come to make up their minds about who to vote for, of course they're voting for a local MP. In Davenport, they'll vote for a candidate running in Davenport. But they also have an eye on the leader as well. You don't make those choices in a vacuum. So I'd like to hear from each of you, if you could give us the best feature of your leader. What's the one thing that's most attractive about your leader that should compel voters to come to that party? Wayne Scott, you're looking at me, so I'll ask you.
Sincerity. And everybody knows it. Elizabeth May has performed admirably, and everybody knows it. That's why 85% of Canadians on the CBC poll, when we found out she wasn't going to be allowed in the debate, said, let her speak. And the consortium that, let's face it, runs on advertising dollars from the auto industry and the petroleum industry and the tire industry, right, said no.
Sincerity, okay. Let's hear about Jack Layton from you, Andrew Cash. What's most attractive about Jack Layton that should bring people to your party?
The hardest working guy in Parliament Hill, hardest working federal leader. This is a guy with, with huge amounts of integrity. He's been in the trenches trying to make this city, this country, a more sustainable place, a fairer place, a more equal nation for all. I think that Jack's been a phenomenal leader for the NDP and a phenomenal leader in Canada.
Mario, Michael Ignatieff. What is most compelling about Michael Ignatieff?
Well, I think he's a man of incredible intelligence and somebody who's been a champion for many years and decades on human rights. A world scholar who's been recognized internationally as somebody who's championed the doctrine, one of the authors of the doctrine Responsibility to Protect. Somebody who's really believes strongly in the issues of human rights and has been a fighter all his life. And I think is well known internationally. I have the deepest respect and admiration for his work on that field, and I think Canadians get to know more about him. I think they'll get to know what he's about and like him as well.
Okay, well that's why we look forward to the first round of the debates tomorrow, don't we? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go back. Well, you can still look forward to, because there's a basis for criticism after having heard the debates not involving your leader, Elizabeth May. Now, let's go back to something we touched upon earlier, and that's cutting corporate income tax. Now, unfortunately, we don't have Teresa Rodriguez here, the Conservative candidate, because the Conservative candidate platform on this is quite separate from all the opposition parties, but we'll still have to motor on here anyway. What about this notion of continuing to cut corporate income tax?
Well, I go door to door in Davenport and have been for about a year and a half, and people are getting hammered by some of the most expensive cell phone rates, some of the most expensive bank fees, cable fees, internet fees, and they look at the wealthiest corporations in Canada getting tax cuts when they're barely hanging on, and people are angry, and the Bank of Commerce is doing fine. you know, and we've got a $57 billion deficit, and we've got underfunded transit, we've got seniors living in poverty, we've got young families who can't afford
So rather
childcare.
than the tax cuts, so in fact, your party wants to roll back some of the cuts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right.
Absolutely.
The Green Party says what about corporate tax cuts?
They should be limited to 19%.
Yeah.
Let's face it, it's Harper serving his base. Bottom line, that's what it is. He doesn't care about the rest of us. We know that. He doesn't care about 65% of the population.
Okay. And Mario Silva, let's hear from you on
We're
corporate income tax
opposed to
cuts.
these corporate tax cuts, and our party has made it very clear that we're opposed to it. I have spoken in Parliament. Actually, one of my last debates I did when speaking against the budget was against the corporate tax cuts. We have in fact lowered, when we were in government, corporate tax cuts already. So it's one of the lowest there is already in the most.
Right now, we're lower than the U.S. Is that right?
That's right.
Right now.
So
yeah.
but the other thing too is that Liberals always about balancing different interests as well in this.
Because the Liberals got us started on corporate income tax cuts years ago,
that's
right? Yeah.
When we had, in fact, surpluses. So, given the fact we have record deficits at the moment, given the fact we're paying billions of dollars in interest rates, it makes no sense for us to borrow $6 billion to give it back to the wealthiest corporations as well. So, it is the wrong time, and it's the wrong thing to do. It signals that we need to invest in communities, we need to invest in housing, we need to invest in green technology, we need to invest in families, not give it in corporate tax.
But let me ask you this, and I'll come back down the line with this question. Corporate income tax cuts, do they create jobs?
Well, a lot of studies say no. In fact, they don't. I mean,
but the Liberal Party must have thought they did in the beginning,
well,
because they
yes,
liked the cuts.
when it was higher than other countries for investment purposes,
okay.
yes,
All right.
yes, we do.
But
at the same
directly,
time,
do they create jobs?
I would say that the vast majority of the workers, in fact, come from small business, medium-sized small businesses, is where it's 80% of where the job creation takes place. And that's what we're going to do.
And is that the result of corporate income tax cuts?
Well, it doesn't help those people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We need to
so
help.
it could be part of it.
Well, it needs to be. We have to make sure we address the issues of small businesses.
Okay.
All
right. Andrew Kent.
May I? You know, the Liberals supported the current regime of corporate tax cuts in the budget of 2007. They're not saying they're going to stop the current drop in corporate tax cuts. They're not saying they're going to roll them back. They're saying
no,
they're
your party's saying
no, they're saying they're going to pause the corporate tax cuts. Mario just said that now is not the right time for these kinds of tax cuts. And you've also said that they don't create jobs. You know.
Well, do you think they create jobs?
They don't. They don't. I mean, so the question really is, why are they there? Why have the Liberals supported them? And they're really going to. They've said they're just pausing them. Now, you know, the bulk of employment comes from small business. In Davenport,
yeah, but they're corporations in some cases too, aren't
in
they?
Davenport, small businesses are 1, 2, 3 employees, right? And so, you know, we are trying to do a number of targeted things. Drop the small business tax rate.
Okay, well, we haven't got time to go through the whole platform.
Okay.
Let me come back to Wayne Scott. I think I know your answer. I think you already gave it to us, but let me push it further. Corporate income tax cuts, can they produce jobs?
I don't think so. I've never seen any evidence to see that they do, and the latest reports are adamant that they don't. This is a way to give money to the upper income Canadians at the expense of lower income Canadians, and that hits Davenport hard because not only are we one of the smallest, or the smallest riding in Canada. Geographically, we're also one of the lowest income, and it's because that we have a steady flow of new Canadians coming into this ward.
Okay, I'm almost out of time. Are people, when you're knocking on doors, are people engaged? They know what's going on in the election campaign?
People are very much engaged.
Yeah?
Everybody's angry.
Yeah,
everybody's angry that they have to go back to the polls and they're seeing that they're going to have the same thing over
Mario,
again.
would you agree with that?
People are engaged, but I would agree with Wayne. People are also angry that we're actually going for another election, fourth election in 7 years.
Well, it was the Liberal Party that proposed the motion, wasn't it?
Yeah, we proposed the motion because we had lost confidence in the government.
The Harper government was found in contempt of Parliament. That's what we're going to do.
Okay, we have to get to the to the closing statements, gentlemen. I'm sorry we didn't have more time, but that's the best part of an hour. All right, closing thoughts. The first, Mario Silva.
It's been an honor to serve the people of Davenport, and I will continue to work as your member of parliament. Hopefully, on May 2nd, I will have your support once again. This election, like I said, it is about really what direction we want for the country. We want to be the alternative to the present government, the Harper government, which has $30 billion in jets that wants to put forward. It wants to also have cuts of $6 billion in corporate tax cuts, things that we're opposing. We want to invest in families, environment, and child care programs, and to make sure that our cities are livable and places that we can in fact afford to live. And it's a great place, Davenport. I'm proud to call it my home for the last 3 years.
Your final thoughts, Wayne Scott.
I'd just like to again thank you for having us on here. I think this is exactly the kind of dialogue that we need. Davenport has been represented by the same party for 50 years, I believe, if you win this election. 50 years unbroken. We're spinning our wheels. It's time for a change. If not 2011, when? If not Davenport, where? It's time, vote green.
All right. And Andrew Scott, your final thoughts.
Andrew Cash.
Andrew Cash. Scott.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
We need dynamic advocacy for Toronto issues in the House of Commons. We need fighters. We need a strong voice for our city at the federal level. We also need a full-time MP who's going to bring the voices of the hardworking folks of Davenport to Ottawa and bring those voices off. And we need a full-time MP, and I'll be that full-time MP.
Well, isn't it fair to say that MPs are full-time these days? Anybody think that's a part-time job?
No.
The Senate, maybe that's a part-time job. I don't know.
Stuff for 30 years. I haven't been paid yet, but it's full-time.
It's full-time just to be a candidate.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Huh? I mean, your days are typically long, no doubt about that. All right.
If you're doing the job right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, okay. Thank you all very much for taking time out from your campaign to come in and tell us a little about yourselves and
Thanks so
sharing
much.
some of your thoughts with us.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, those are the some
And
of the
thank Dave and
candidates.
the volunteers, too.
All right, okay. All right. Okay, we're going to take a break and come back with an additional candidate in Davenport. So stay with us, if you will, right here on the local campaign.